Hi everyone, my name is Lee, the Average PT, and a bit of a change of pace for me today. I'm going to be talking about another subject which I'm fairly passionate about, and that is football, Newcastle United specifically, and transfer deadline day, January transfer window specifically. So, like I say, I thought I'd put together a bit of a different video today, away from my usual fitness content, to talk about my opinions on the transfers that we made in the January transfer window. So we'll start with the first signing, Kieran Trippier. I think most people would agree that right back probably wasn't a key position for us in terms of a key weakness. However, when a player of that kind of quality becomes available and is interested, then I think it's a no-brainer. I think not only is he a better right back than Javi Manquillo, I think, and Emil Kraft for that matter, I think he is a leader. I think he's a great character, and Eddie Howe's openly said that he wanted to buy not just quality players, but people who are good in the dressing room, vocal on the pitch, can organise. I think that's been our biggest weakness. I know a lot of individual errors have cost us goals and cost us points and cost us wins this season especially. But I think the biggest issue is the lack of cohesion at the back. It's not necessarily about the individual errors for me. I think it's more to do with the lack of cohesion, the lack of leadership. I think that's the one thing that's keeping Jamal Lascelles in the team, is he is probably the best at organising the back four, even though he's arguably our worst defender on current form, and certainly the most prone to a mistake at the minute. So I think in terms of Kieran Trippier, I think he brings quality on and off the pitch. He's been openly spoke about as a future captain, and I think he's a no-brainer in terms of adding quality to the team. And yeah, I think it's a 9 out of 10 signing. I think the only thing that is a bit of a shame is obviously we've got him towards the back end of his career. I don't want to write him off yet because he's younger than me. But you know, then again on the flip side, if he was 2 or 3 years younger, would he have been interested in coming to us? Probably not. Let's not forget he's come from the reigning champions of Spain to us. So huge transfer for us, and I think we'll even just for his set piece delivery alone, I think easily a 9 out of 10 signing. Moving on to the second signing of the window, Chris Wood. Obviously very different type of player to what we're used to. We're used to Callum Wilson up front being nimble, being agile, being on the shoulder of the last defender, really clinical in front of goal. I've admired Chris Wood for a long time. I've said for a long time that he would be a good signing for us. Again, we're obviously getting him towards the back end of his career, and the fee that we've paid for him is the one thing that I think a lot of people are getting hung up on. £25 million for a player of Chris Wood's calibre is outrageous. He's nowhere near worth £25 million. However, I do think he's a good player. I do think he's an improvement on what we've got in terms of we're used to Andy Carroll kind of playing that role in the last couple of years, which obviously didn't work out. It was a great thought, but it didn't really work out the way anybody hoped it would. And in terms of what we already have, Dwight Gale, I've said for 2 or 3 years now he should be gone. He's a championship player. He did great for us. I have nothing but respect for him. I met him once and he seems like a lovely bloke, but he's just not good enough at this level. He's never going to get the goals that we need, and I think Chris Wood offers us something completely different. My concern is when Wilson's fit, is Chris Wood just going to sit on the bench? That's not a concern per se in terms of I would much rather have Wilson on the pitch. But with them being such different players, I think we've only really got Fraser and Trippier who can deliver across. Shelby, arguably, he's very ready, going to find himself on the wing, but I think Chris Wood thrives on having 2 out-and-out wingers whipping crosses in. That's why he did so well for Burnley, holding the ball up. I think he's a good signing for us, don't get me wrong. I think a lot of people have written him off already because he hasn't hit the ground running and he hasn't scored in his first couple of games, which is obviously outrageous. I think he's a decent signing, a good solid 6 out of 10 signing. Obviously weakens Burnley as well, although my first thought when I heard that was, okay, a lot of people are justifying the signing, saying like, yeah, it's a lot of money, but we've weakened the relegation rival and strengthened ourselves. Yeah, but Burnley now have £25 million sitting in their hand, which they didn't have. And they have gone out and bought a £13 million striker whose name I can't remember at this moment in time, but he has scored a lot of goals in Germany over the last couple of years, including this season. I think he has 7 goals this season compared to Chris Wood's 3. So if he does hit the ground running, which is a big if because players coming in from overseas, specifically Germany, do tend to struggle for a good few months, then it might be a stroke of genius by them moving on an ageing striker, bringing in somebody younger for half the price, who is, a bit more prolific over the last couple of years. Remains to be seen, but yeah, I think Chris Wood, decent signing. Moving on to the latter end of the window, we brought in the Brazilian playmaker slash defensive midfielder Bruno Guimarães. I hope I've pronounced that properly. And I'm quite excited by this one. Again, he's the only signing that we made that doesn't have Premier League experience. I think that's obviously something that Eddie Howe in particular was quite vocal about, wanting experience, and not just Premier League experience, but having that kind of graft mentality, that kind of, I'm gonna put a shift in for the team, that character. He may well have that character. I don't know. I've seen very, very little of him, so I don't want to say that he's going to be this or he's going to be that, or I'm nervous about this. The only thing I would say that's holding him back from being a top player at this moment in time is that experience at the top level. The French league just is not the same quality as the Premier League, and it's not the same pace. So it remains to be seen whether he's going to come in and tear the league up, which he may well do. He's been compared to Johan Cabaye in a lot of ways, which, if he's anywhere near as good as Cabaye was for us, then it's a great signing. Obviously a lot of money, but the money side of things, as I mentioned with Chris Wood, the money side of things is just not that big of an issue for us. I don't think it's a good idea for us to go and spend anything on players. I think the owners have done pretty well in terms of, pulling out of deals when they started to get too expensive, because we're just going to create a rod for our own back. However, we did need a big signing to kind of create that sense of excitement around the place, and I think he will do that. If he does hit the ground running, if he does perform well in his first few games, it could literally flip our season. I think he's got that much ability. However, I don't want us to fall into this mentality of he's the best player in the team, give the ball to him and he'll win the game for us, like we have done in the last couple of years with St. Maximin. We've seen St. Maximin in particular is hot 4 or 5 games out of 10, and in the other games he's really, really not. If this guy's the same, which I don't think he will be, to be fair, if this guy's the same and we put all our eggs in that basket, then we're going to be in for a whole world of pain. However, I do think he's a great signing, although I don't want to put too much pressure on him at this stage. On a deadline day, and we brought in 2 players. We brought in Matt Targett on loan from Aston Villa, a left back, and we brought in local lad Dan Burn, centre back, 6'15" or whatever he is. I'm from a personal point of view, I'm quite glad to see that we've brought in Dan Burn at centre back. I've always thought he was a decent player. He's obviously gotten better over the last couple of years, and being a local lad, he's from just up the road from where I'm from, really, from where I grew up anyway. I've never met him myself, but everybody that I know who knows him or knew him only speaks highly of him. He seems like a nice lad. He seems like a solid player. The one thing I would say on that deal is I would have been very, very happy with the signing of Dan Burn if he was one of 2 centre-backs that we'd signed. I alluded to it earlier. The biggest problem I think we have at the back is not quality. The biggest problem is leadership. And I think we need a leader at the back. When was the last time we had an experienced, very strong character at the back? You could argue that Fernandes has played that role for the last couple of years. I'm a big fan of Fernandes. I think we've really suffered without him in the team. Obviously, he's in the twilight years of his career now. But he does bring that experience, and he does bring that kind of calmness to the defence. But I don't see him as a very vocal person. I don't see him organising the defence the way someone like Lascelles does. The problem with that is Lascelles doesn't have that experience. He's just not good enough at this level. I think we've needed for a long time a good, arguably very good centre-back who is also experienced and vocal and whatnot. I think a lot of young defenders that we've had over the last, for as long as I can remember, there's a lot of young defenders who had the potential have not had someone to learn from. Going back to the days of Titus Bramble, he was, on his day, he was one of the best centre-backs in the league at the time, on his day. The problem was, he had so many mistakes in him because he never had a strong player alongside him. You could argue a similar premise with Stephen Taylor, showed a lot of potential, was in the England under-21s team a lot, I think captained England under-21s for a long time, and showed real potential and never really got any better from when he was 22, 23 and was arguably worse 5 years later. I think the same thing's happened with Lascelles over the last couple of years. He's went from being probably one of the better players in the squad to arguably our worst player, definitely on current form. There was even talk 3 or 4 years ago about him being included in the England squad. Obviously that never happened, and since then his form's just gone through the floor. I'm not writing him off, and I'm sure if he was paired with a really strong partner, somebody more experienced than him, then I think he could get back to where he was, you know. And I think if he was at the level that he was 3 years ago, I don't think we'd be in anywhere near the position that we're in now. But that's just one of those things. So like I say, Dan Burn, great signing, great for him, great for the the Blythe community, who all the people who I know who know him are all buzzing about it. So yeah, great signing for him and for the club. But I would have liked to have seen him as one of 2 centre-backs coming in. And that brings us on to left-back Matt Targett, on loan from Aston Villa. In my opinion, the best signing we've made. I don't think he's the best player of the ones that we've signed, but I think left-back was our Achilles heel. A lot of goals that we've conceded this season have come from that area of the pitch. I think it's a position we've struggled with for a good few years now, probably ever since Jose Enrique moved on. And I think he is someone with a lot of quality. You know, he's a good player. He's not the best left back in the league, not by a stretch, but he's a good, solid player, and he has, crucially, lots of Premier League experience. Something to prove in terms of, you know, losing his place in the Villa team to Luca Digne. 10 out of 10 signing. I think for where we are at now, with the level of quality of player that we can attract, I think Matt Targett is the perfect signing at left back. So left back, right back and centre back, happy with those 3 signings. Clearly that was the area of the pitch, specifically left back and centre back, that we really, really struggled. I'm happy with the signing in centre midfield. I would have liked to have seen us brought in Van der Beek. Obviously he chose to go to Everton. Fair enough, you know. So I'd have liked to have seen him brought in, but that's just one of those things. Lingard and Ali, I was never convinced on. The signing we've made in the centre of the park is a good one, and hopefully he hits the ground running. But I think key to point out, we need to give him a bit of time, and up front is probably the only area where we really could have done with somebody of Wilson's sort of quality being brought in. Chris Wood, I definitely think he's a good player. I definitely think he's a good player to have in the squad. But realistically, he's not going to get us the 10 goals over the next sort of 18, 19 games that we need, which, you know, somebody else potentially would have. So a bit disappointed up front, but overall, I think pretty much the best we could have hoped for in terms of a January transfer window. Do I think we'll stay up? Yes, I think it'll be close. I think we'll finish with way less than 40 points. But realistically, that 40-point target is just there because of history. All we need to do is finish above 3 teams. Norwich, I think we'll finish above. Burnley, I think we'll finish above. And Watford, which I know they've brought in Roy Hodgson. I don't see it having a massive impact. I'm sure he'll make them better, but I don't think he'll make them good enough. I think we'll finish above those 3 teams. I think we will stay up with a low point score of somewhere between sort of 33 and 38. I think Everton will stay up because they'll get a bit of a bounce. Whether they'll get a bit of a bounce in time to beat us on Monday, obviously, hopefully not. But I'll be watching with a lot of interest. And yeah, that's my thoughts on the January transfer window in general. In the summer, assuming we do stay up, which obviously is a big if we do stay up, I think we'll probably spend the same kind of money again, if not more. And I think we'll be able to attract a lot better players than we have now, and we'll see a lot of players moved on. That was another interesting thing from the January transfer window. Very few players left the club. I know a couple of people went out on loan. I think in the summer we'll see a good between half a dozen and 10, you know, regular first team names moved on. The likes of Kieran Clark, clearly he's you know, in a bad way at the club just now. The likes of Jamal Lewis, it just hasn't worked out for him. I'm sure he'll go on and have a solid career somewhere else, but I don't see him staying at the club past the summer. And the likes of Dwight Gale, Jeff Hendrick, etc., kind of fringe players who I think will be moved on, and we'll see a very different Newcastle team next season, perhaps with a different style of play, perhaps with a different philosophy altogether. But in terms of this season, I think if we all get right behind the team, I think we'll end up being fine. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you disagree, if you have a different view on anybody that we could have signed, that we should have signed, that we should have maybe put in a higher bid for or whatever, and what you think about the 5 signings that we did make. Yeah, let me know, and we'll maybe make another video in the future. Hopefully another one when we stay up.